This is an introduction into the archive management cockpit from Dolphin. The tool is used to analyze and manipulate archive files. The most relevant transactions which are important are two customizing transactions, AMC1 and AMC2, as well as a data processing transaction, the AMC transaction, as well as a catalog. Let's start with stating the problem. In some cases, it could be possible that there are sensitive information in archive files. I will show you one example. The archive object SDVBAK can contain sensitive information like credit card information. Here I show you an example of an archive session with 4 files. In that archive file, we find all of the tables and the data relevant to the archiving of this archive objects. You see in this specific record in the session 1214, archive file 1, we have credit card numbers in the table FPLTC. So if I go into the table view, we can clearly see that credit card numbers could potentially be a problem, because everybody who has access to the transaction AS_archive file browser, which is a default SAP transaction, could review the sensitive information. Of course, this could also apply to other sensitive information like address, Social Security numbers, and so on and so forth. So how do we deal with a problem like that? Number one is we need essentially an analysis of these archive files which you might have in your SAP productive system. For that purpose, we can run an analysis. Let me just talk about the customizing first. The AMC1 transaction is used to customize specific scenarios which we can handle with the AMC tool. One scenario is if we have sensitive information, we want to encrypt it. Another scenario, which we refer to as a change request, would be masking, as well as conditional field replacements. For these change requests, we can tie them together with certain fields which we essentially want to do the replacement. So we really target encryption or a masking or a conditional encryption right down to a specific field. And we have this abstract concept of a search field, which the resolution of this search field, we have another customizing transaction where we can actually review where the credit card information, technical information for credit cards are defined. So if I look at these technical information to just give you a feel of what we're talking about here. Let me put on the filter, and you can see that the credit card number actually does show up. Oh, let me just modify that filter one more time. Credit card numbers could be in different tables based on different tables based on the archiving object. VBAK, VBRK, FI documents, they all keep the credit card numbers in different tables and fields. So with this specification, we target essentially where we actually look for the credit card number, and then we have the choice. Either we call an encryption exit, user exit in this case, or we have essentially a fixed replacement. Masking is a non-reversible replacement, but we say, replace something with mask or with whatever you want to, or we have a conditional replacement that we say if we find a substring of a certain value, like let's say we find a certain name in some of these ADK files, then we replace it. So in this case, created by, we could look for a certain user who has created something, and we could do a replacement. So we are really flexible in replacing anything we want to in this with this tool. The exit points to a function module wrapper, and we have defined exactly how this wrapper works. If I look at the transaction SE37, you can see that in a wrapper function module, we know exactly how to call it. We had a case where a customer wanted us to use a certain encryption and a encryption function module which had a certain interface, and with our wrapper module we can actually talk to these encryption mechanisms. So meaning we're passing in a credit card number, and when we get back credit card number in, we're importing an encrypted credit card number out. But this is a very generic mechanism which we can adapt to certain scenarios. Talk to SAP encryption function modules, to Dolphin encryption function modules, or in this case, customer specific. That's why we need a wrapper. So we have that tie back here, that all credit card numbers are treated with this Apple encryption mechanism. If I wanted to target other fields, I would just have to, add additional change requests with a search field. So we're targeting certain fields in archive files, and then we do certain either function module based modification or class methods. Here we have the class, here we have the method specification. We can manipulate the values. If we have a functional relationship, we have a constant relationship, we can mask it. If we have a conditional relationship, we have an old value, replace it with a new value. The other customizing transaction is AMC2. So let's go in the AMC2 transaction. This basically only abstracts the way of how we do the processing. So in here, I will show two scenarios. Number one is the analyzing of ADK files, where we don't do anything. We're just doing an analyze and be able to review the analysis, like do we have encrypted fields or unencrypted fields. So we can ask these questions. Do we have certain values in certain fields? So we can ask certain questions, and we can have one or many sub jobs associated with a session. So a session is a one-to-multiple relationship to what do you want to do? How do I do an analysis? Do I check for encryption? Do I check for substrings? I can really have any logical condition I can dream up with, and then basically implement the analysis job. You can think of this as a subroutine or a class method. We actually pointed in this case to the analysis job is implemented in a class and implemented in a certain method. So we're calling that. So we're very abstract to add additional jobs, like I analyze something, I encrypt something, maybe I delete the old file after I did the encryption, so I delete the parents, and then do maybe an unindexing of the parent. So all of these subjobs we can basically control here. So these are the two main customizing transactions. So let's kick off an analyze job against the ADK file, which I showed earlier. So let me look at this ADK file, which we had in mind. We'll just look at the file where we had the encrypted, unencrypted information. So AMC test file with 17, keep it small, 17 test documents. So here we have unencrypted information. The way to kick it off is to use the AMC transaction. All of these transactions are prefixed with MC underscore, and then we run essentially the abbreviation. So let me explain that two-step process of doing something. The first step is always an analysis, initialization step. Why do we have an initialization step? Is we basically want to know what sessions I want to analyze or encrypt and so on and so forth. So we have the initializing basically says, hey, these are the objects where I want to ask questions against, analyze, or where I wanted to modify something like encrypt. So I go into the last transaction of the AMC, which is very important, is the AMC catalog transaction. Go in here. And I run this fully open right now. There's a filter. Right now there's nothing in the catalog. So nothing, no files in the catalog, nothing to do. So in order to tell the tool what we want to do is, let's basically tell them that we want to do the encryption scenario, no, not the masking scenario, but we don't only concentrate on the analyzing of this. And when we initialize that, as a result, if I go back in the AMC catalog, I see now that I'm initialized. We have, want to encrypt something, we want to do the analyze session model, and these are the ADK files, 4 of them in this session. And right now we have the status of 10. 10 means we're initialized, we haven't started yet. If we are finished, we are in status 30, the job is finished. But there's all initialized timestamps here, so nothing really happens. So during the analysis, we want to answer the questions, like how many are unencrypted credit card numbers in this file? How many are encrypted? So unencrypted, encrypted. But in order to make a decision, of if I should actually, do a conversion of this ADK session, we want to basically have to, see how many are, we have to add up all of the unencrypted files in the session, or objects. It's really objects in the file. So we're counting the objects which are unencrypted in this session. And because what could happen is, in a session could have 1,000 files, and if only one object within these 1,000 files has an unencrypted file, we might want to do the conversion. So everything needs to be, aggregated up to the session level. So this is how it looks. And then, to run it is basically executing the other stages, the dispatch. We are doing the analysis now. And when we do the analysis runs, typically we would run this in the background. We do a refresh on the catalog. And if you can see right now that, actually let me hide this. This is relevant for later. We'll basically see that in this first file, we have 3 unencrypted credit cards, and none of them are encrypted, a total of 20 in the session. So if you add up 3 plus 8 plus 8 plus 1, we get 20. At this point, we know that we want to do something with this ADK file. So this is the analysis part. And we can ask all kinds of other questions. We have these essentially counters here, which we can map to questions like, not only is something encrypted, unencrypted, is there are, for instance, like certain substrings in certain fields in certain tables or certain records. And of course, we also keep track of any errors. Are there any errors when we did process these jobs? I told you multiple jobs could run. We do the first one, the second one, the third one. Are there any errors in these steps? And we would get that information. That pretty much concludes the analysis side of